Hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday serial. I have a motherload of books this week, and man, I was kind of like, is there really going to be that much to talk? No. We're going to go through it, even though I didn't necessarily want to at first, but yeah. But before I do that, I was actually a bit nerd ragey last night over a couple of points. And whereas I recorded myself for half an hour, I decided not to post it because it was ugly. It was not good. So I want to go over those points a little bit first. The first point was about an article I read that was from this female blogger. It was on the Mary Sue, and it was about this idea of kind of a demonization of, you know, the geek girl, and talking about how, you know, some guys talk about it, you know, that girl who is pretending to be a geek as so to get attention. And I understand why she's against it. You know, some people are just getting into it and whatever, and that's fine. She even was talking about, like, how some of them might know this or that, and then they talk about it and they don't need to be downtrodden, which I understand. I'd even go further. You know, sometimes someone just reads something tied to a movie or something hot at the moment, like the girl who just read Scott Pilgrim knows it but wants to talk about it. That's awesome. We need more of that. That's awesome. There needs to be those things that people go and read because it's awesome, and that's all it has to be. You don't need to have a room full of comic books. It's ridiculous. No. It's only when they start acting like they know all about comics, blah, 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 and they don't know the first thing that you just need to... It doesn't matter the gender. You know, if someone's popping off about something, you spend a good deal of your time devoted to, whether it's entertainment or work-related or anything else, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You just kind of, you know, speak the truth. That's all that it needs to be. But, within the article, she says, you know, guys refer to these girls and they say they're doing it just to get attention, which is an excuse used to downtrot women who are doing stuff that get raped and da-da-da. And it... No. No. I'm sorry. If you compare a girl being shunned by some jerks in a comic shop who most any other group would love to talk to the person, because good conversation's good conversation. There's always jerks anywhere. That's just a rule of anywhere. But to compare that to rape, that's just despicable and wrong and terrible, and no. It really caught my ire, and it still does now that I'm talking about it. It's a comparison that's so completely off and dumb. And yes, maybe people need to be a bit more open-minded, but that doesn't mean it needs to be compared to rape. That's stupid. The second point was this. Oddfellow's Thought brought it up most prominently in my mind, though others did talk about it. This whole idea that Hellblazer is being cancelled, which is bad for Vertigo and makes me worried about Vertigo. I was worried about Vertigo when this whole new DC 52 was announced because a couple of titles were ending. DMZ was on its final stretch, as it was always intended to be. And then, you know, what's left? Hellblazer and Fables and kind of your whatever the month. And there's Saucer Country, there's a couple of other things, but... But what really got me about it is... They're right. Constantine is not going to have the edge of Hellblazer, and it makes me sad. I mean, yes, there will always be diversity in comics and your independence and whatnot, but this is our loss of editorial comics with any teeth, any sex, any diversity, any idea. I mean, you can bet the hell he's not going to be bisexual anymore. And it's almost shameful to realize that, I mean, what are we going to have left? What are we going to have left that has some prominence, that has any real substance anymore? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's lots of great stuff. I still love comics. I'm still here reading it, and I don't even mind the DC Constantine as much. You know, I'm liking Justice League Dark right now. But to lose Hellblazer is a huge loss, and I have no intention of picking up this Constantine title its own. No. I'm sad to see that, and it's something pervasive throughout our culture right now. We have these superheroes who taught us from their early days to fight corporation. I mean, Spider-Man going against the older businessman, that was a big part of who he was. Superman's modus operandi from the very beginning was to take down the corrupt businessman, the evil person who was bringing down the rest of man, and showed us more humanity despite the fact that he was an alien, a true immigrant story, whatever. That idea is still there, that kind of anti-corporate thing. And now that all these heroes are owned by corporations, what does it leave us to say? And there's a little bit, the current Superman arc apparently is going to have a little bit of it, but we'll see how much that really is. And I don't know, just kind of that whatever could be there next is just being lost, and it's all due to corporate interest and, you know, study groups and seeing what's going to sell versus what really does sell. And it's really the end of the age, not just for comics. I mean, this went out the way a long time ago. I mean, September 11th hit, and where were the punk bands to say, you know, yeah, maybe it is a bit our fault, or where is the real comedy to talk about it? Where is anything that was really even talking about it, you know, in the moment? It was nothing. The comic reaction was a Spider-Man issue, which made sense, but and a new direction for Captain America, and a little banner for a year. We got nothing. Our entertainment doesn't serve us anymore because it doesn't react to the world around us because it can't afford to be offensive. What is comics if not at least partially a bit of counterculture, right? I mean, that goes back to any point, and it's sad to see that that's pretty much completely lost now. I mean, once Vertigo's gone, that's it for editorial comics, so oh well. So first is my graphic novel of the week, and it was The Shadow, Blood and Judgment, Howard Chaykin's big Shadow bit. This was recommended to me by James Donnelly because I was kind of curious about the Shadow. It's a character he's clearly into, and I was like, where's a good place for me to start with this character? I was kind of assuming it would be, you know, a trade of the new series, but no, he said this, which apparently is like one of the greatest Shadow stories. And it's told, you know, in that 80s era during that great time of comics, and this probably is a better comic than I'm going to say from here on out, because it was interesting, but it was very much 80s evil businessmen, and then just fiction of women was just sour all around by every character. And as far as someone who is curious about this book because they're looking for an introduction to the Shadow, the character the Shadow is only in the last 2 chapters of the book, and somewhat sparingly at that. And the man behind the Shadow is barely in the book any more than that. There's a complete, issue and a half where the main character is not present, and setting up this whole world around him and all these stupid devices to take him from one time period to another, which it's done fairly well, yada yada. But yeah, it's an interesting read, but as someone who's looking to get into the character, it didn't do much for me. Plus there's a play with the villain and the main character and the name, which threw me off, because I'm trying to, you know, get into it, and this is this very deeply personal thing. Admittedly, this is where a lot of people were reintroduced to the character. If you look at the back, this is a well-renowned comic, and I don't know, I was just kind of befuddled by the whole thing, was missing things here and there because I'm trying to cue into this whole new universe, and it doesn't really help you along there. So it's an interesting read. If you're looking for a good Shadow book and you already know the character, this is actually probably really great. But I'm going to have to read it again after seeing a little bit more about the character to actually give it a full judgment, but that was what I read this week. Right, Scarlet Spider, we're nearing the end of Minimum Carnage. Thank goodness. And I just want to say this right away. There's only 6 parts to this Minimum Carnage story, and I don't think it's asking too much of the Spider Office to vary up the shipping schedule enough so that 2 of the issues don't come out on the same week. So the Scarlet Spider is trying, and the plotting's decent. It's Yo, so I want to like it because he has a lot of good chops, but there are some lines in this book that just... like this. I'm being shown a better path, a better way, the way of the Scarlet Spider, and it's like, no, just no. That's just bad lines, and I see what they're going for, and they're trying to do this whole darker Spider-Man thing, and what's weird is this ends up being partially Venom's book, but I'm just going to jump right to it. When you get to Venom's side of it, the Scarlet Spider is only there for a moment as kind of a quick action beat, save Venom for a second, but it's really on Venom the entire time. It's this Venom Carnage thing. Scarlet Spider is really only along for the ride, which there's a lot of interplay with Venom and all that, and that's fine, but it's mostly held in this book anyways. The Scarlet Spider books, Venom stuff is redundant, and they actually have this whole play that they kind of set up, and this idea that the Scarlet Spider's, you know, a killer too, and just, you know, like a bad Spider-Man, but so is Venom, and it's really, instead of really contrasting these 2 characters, it's really showing me how they're the same, and also it's showing me that this Venom is not Remender's Venom, in that they try to play up a lot of the things that they talk about with the old, what's been built up with this Flash Thompson Venom, and it just falls so short. The truth is, I'll see where it's at in about a month when I'm tying up Spider-Man and everything, but I think both of these books are on the chopping block. Unless they wow me in their next issue, they're gone. Every other book I read this month, save for maybe 1 or 2, were definitely better than these, and it was a little disheartening, especially as it's supposed to be this big event. And yeah. The other interesting thing about Venom was today someone on Twitter was talking about it, and they're clearly a big symbiote fan, and they're like, why are they just making the symbiote out to be the bad guy and da-da-da, all he does is help Flash, doesn't hurt him. Like, were we reading the same book? Like, of course it's not physically hurting Flash, it's, well, mostly, but it needs him, but it's slowly working him to where it wants it, and it's been that way since the beginning. That's the whole play. Top of the addiction, it's like if your addiction or cancer or whatever, like, had a mind of its own, was actually a, you know, part of what leads you to a dark side, a demon on your shoulder that you're aware of, but in some ways you need, and that's been there the entire time. That's the interesting interplay that's now a little short, and for someone to just be like, no, the symbiote's helping him along, it's great, what's the problem? Like, it's just weird how some people are reading these books and it doesn't feel like they're reading these books, which I'm sure we all have our moments, but this is 27 issues in. For it to completely miss that is, I don't know, it blew me away. The countdown with Amazing continues, and in this we have a lot of quick play with the Spider Identity versus Max Model's Genius. We have the Goblins wrapped up. We have building towards this final act, even though this feels like it should just be part of the final act. I don't know, it just felt like a false ending in so many ways, and so many ways it is. I don't know, this issue went along and I kind of enjoyed it, but I don't know, just this knowing of what's coming is really hindering my ability to enjoy this book to the fullest, which is a shame. It's certainly better than the last 2, don't get me wrong, beautiful writing and art, and well, the art's good, not beautiful. But what really killed me on Amazing today was Dan Slott tweeted out about the future of Spider-Man, kind of how to read along, and so for the next little bit, there's going to be the issues, as you'd expect, and there's going to be a .1 at $6.99, so $6.99.1, which is really a tie-in to head off to the Morbius, which is kind of this final .1 to do so, because we've had that with Venom and Scarlet Spider, I think, or maybe it's not, I forget. But there's that to really kind of kick off into this Morbius book, which I don't give two shits about, because Morbius is really annoying. Well, I'm a vampire and it's terrible. Who cares? But then you get to 700, which will be Marvel that week. I'm assuming it's a 5th week. Will only be shipping Amazing Spider-Man 700, and then the new book, Avenging Spider-Man 15.1. For those who aren't catching on, a la the Amazing Spider-Man 15, and so did it. But okay, so like initially my thought is, okay, it's a stupid numbering thing, whatever, I'm kind of used to that by now. But then I thought about it for a second, I'm like, wait. This whole not avenging, amusing, oh god damn, what is it? Superior Spider-Man. Oh, I think I messed it up earlier. But so Superior Spider-Man then leads to this next jumping on point, Superior Spider-Man 1, which then it goes on, maybe I'm mixing up the titles, but it just seems so dumb. Like, why are you confusing readers with these titles? Like, what's going on? It seems so... It gets so bizarrely complicated on the reading order and whatnot. You know, how are people supposed to jump in? There's just this mismatch of titles. It's just so... who cares? And it's another thing people don't need to try to get into a book that's already being met with not controversy, yes, on one hand, but on the other hand, a lot of people being like, why do I care? You have a thinly veiled mystery that has to be revealed, and so I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on Spider-Man given all this hoopla that just doesn't feel like it's going to pay off. Alright, Gambit 5. Thin dialogue, putting everyone into a suit for no good reason, and just don't buy this book. Just whatever you do this week, there's enough better stuff. This was actually the worst book I've read in a while. Just don't bother with it at all. There's my review of Gambit. Don't. Where is Jake Ellis? I had no idea this was coming, so it kind of blew me away to pick it up today, and I have to say the mystery's all there, and I'm intrigued and hooked all over again. It may not live up to the original chunk, but I'm excited to see where this book goes, especially since this seems to be Edmondson's kind of the book he can write when he's kind of ventured out. I didn't care, but I'm hoping this continues to be as solid as the first run, even though it's kind of a weird bit to live up to. So if you like the first chunk, check it out. If you're interested in kind of this bizarre spy espionage type of book, I'd highly recommend going and getting the first trade first and then looking at this issue, because this issue on its own I don't think will stand nearly as strong. There's a lot of great stuff this week. So far I've kind of plowed through the just by accident, really. But this book just took the cake. Atomic Robo, The Flying She-Devils of the Pacific, 4 of 5. This is how comics are done, people. Every month, I'm telling you this. Look, okay. So there's this great bit kind of talking about Japan and US relations and how there's some, I mean, most people are amicable, but there's this kind of, point where America doesn't allow Japan to really have a military. So when you deal with these kind of Japanese military types, they plan on attacking a very square enemy, and there's good reason. And it leads right into this bit because a huge play, and I'm starting to see it more and more now, this idea of where science leads to military and how scientists don't even necessarily intend it, but it ends up there. And so here you are, 1951. Let me get this straight. Earthquake bombs are scientists determined atomic weaponry unfeasible in the short term. We pursued proven weapon technologies. Earthquake bombs were proven? It's like completely on the plot, and one guy's being serious, and then you have Robo just like, what? And you get the weird science interplay, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. And you see, one of the few times, you see Robo get taken out, and he's actually out for most of this issue, which is great because you get the threat to develop even more, and then you see more about this Japanese deal. Then you see the Flying She-Devils kind of have their heyday, and they kind of get to, and then they save Robo, which is a big deal because in a lot of ways Robo is almost sometimes kind of more of a Superman level character where, bullets don't hurt him, this and that, but I mean, they find clever ways to take him out so he's not invulnerable. He's just, strategically the person you want to put in first, on top of being, kind of the action hero type, whatever, but there's a reason for him to be there, and then he can be taken out, but it's always there, and he's a robot, so it's toned down, which is great, because, it lets this book, that's so much smarter than so many others, kind of come down in the violence scales. So once you're in a pretty competent reading point, you can start reading this book and start getting a bit out of it, and there's a few levels to be getting out of this book, which is great. And so clearly the target for these earthquake bombs is San Francisco, so they can just hit the fault and do so much to America. And these jetpack girls are off to go save the day. And they're doing it, and Robo needs to step out. This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid. Just look at that panel. What sells it is, look at his face. Look at that. Oh, it's so... there's the action and the comedy and the weird science fiction stuff and the little bit of political talk, and it's all wrapped up in a tiny bit of history, and it's all just wrapped up there. It's so brilliantly written, and it's not, it's wordy. You feel like you're getting your bit, but it's not so wordy that it's to its detriment. It's great. This is, seriously, people, I'm telling you, branch out. This is probably the only comic worth getting from Red 5. It just, oh my gosh. I was blown away. And despite everything else this week, this is just definitely the book you're not picking up that you should be. Then this came out, in case you didn't know. In which case, how are you watching my show? Because I'd be shocked that someone that was not that in tune with the comic scene would bother to watch this, so thank you. And go read the trade of this now. Everybody loves it. Man, I picked this up, got through a few pages, and was just like, man. And I know people are like, oh, Brian K. Vaughan, he's so brilliant. No, make no mistake, this is far and away the best thing he's ever worked on. And it's the same for Staples. This is the best book that she'd be putting out, and it plays to her strengths so amazingly. I've seen a couple other books, and she did well, but it didn't come through like on this. Man, and what really sold it was this giant Cyclops creature, and get a gander, if you will, at that. That's a family-friendly Cyclops right there. My God, I just sat there for a few minutes and took that in. I haven't done or had a reaction like that since Preacher with the Meat Man, if you know what I mean. Beautiful art. Yeah. And man, and just the play of the families and the setup as to why it's so tense is just there, and it's just long enough so you get it, and it has the impact, and you're in it, and it hints at a little bit more story that doesn't even really need to be told because it's there, and there's not really much to add, or maybe they'll come back to, and there will be, but presumably you're good on that. And just brilliant, amazing. If you're not picking up Saga, you're fucking crazy. Man, this was just so good. And yet Atomic Robo just a little bit better. No one else will agree with me on that, and that is fine, because this is phenomenal. But just a little bit. Then maybe a step down from, but Thief of Thieves 10. Man, Gambit could take a hint or two. This issue was great for the series. This issue was so good it made the last issue better because I got a much clearer idea of what the fuck was going on. This is the most clear issue that's been put out so far, and I'm sure some might find that a bit at a detriment. But we see the son, and we see him get pulled out, a la his father, and we see them going to rescue the girl, but you see why the dad's kind of a badass, but at the same time smart, They really set up who they're dealing with when you see the girlfriend's hostage situation, which is... I've seen things like this before in a few movies, but the way it's written and whatnot is just done so right. It makes things very clear as to where you are, and I've never seen it done in that light. And so when you hear them referred to as psychotics, you understand exactly what's meant and exactly to what degree and why he's dealing with them in the way he is. And it makes so much sense that only he would have the balls to do that too. And it's... I mean, this book I don't think has actually been stronger than this issue. I can't wait for the next one, because now that we're really set up and I'm really rock solid on what's going on for once, I can't wait to see where it's going. This is definitely a great book and a departure from so much stuff that, you're not getting so much elsewhere. So if you're looking for a bit kind of grittier stuff, I would recommend this, and I would recommend this over Scam from last week, though please go pick up Scam, because that's an up-and-coming publisher and that's a solid book as well. But yeah, so Thief of Thieves is definitely worth checking out there. And I just want to preface the next bit. Death of the Family came out, and there's one kind of hidden prequel. I shopped through it and I'm totally fine with it, but damn it, DC. Much like Marvel with the minimum carnage bullshit and putting it all out pretty much in 1 week, there were essentially, I think, unless there's another hidden one, 5 Death of the Family tie-ins this month. And you published 4 for 1 week. I've been waiting for a little bit and kind of getting a little fuzzy on a couple of the details here and there. And it's 4 in 1 week? That's just... son of a bitch. On the upside, this week was expensive, and I have a feeling the rest of this month is going to be a bit cheaper because I already bought everything. Dear Lord. Batman and Robin, this was kind of the hidden tie-in, and just so we're clear, I'm working my way up the quality scale on these tie-ins. Yeah, you get this bizarre zombie thing. I missed the last issue, so I'm kind of unclear what exactly is happening. Damien's in with these gluttonous types, and he's saving a few people, and Batman's pissed at him for not taking the proper safety procedures. And then there's this bit about how Joker's been pulling the strings the whole time, which just doesn't quite make sense, because there's not really like a sick twisted to ha-ha. There's just kind of this, yep, there were some people and Damien was in danger, and except his plan worked exactly how he predicted, more or less, and he was fine, and then Batman showed up and it was all as you'd expect by the numbers, which doesn't really fit any of the other Death of the Families, or Death in the Family, or whatever. So yeah, and then you have this little bit about like Bruce being so proud of Damien, there's a little hug, and then it's like, and then Death, Joker, neck is issued. Just like, that was actually the creepiest bit with the juxtaposition, so I don't know. If you're on the fence about this issue, don't. So then we have the Suicide Squad tie-in, which, clearly the clinch here is Harley. They're at apparently Deathstroke's funeral. Oh well. Don't know what happened. Don't care. And it reminded me why I wasn't so big on this version of Harley. Joker swoops in and he's like, I'll leave you and your lovebird lord, who apparently was Deadshot. It was Deadshot, sorry. Sorry, the guy wasn't present in the comic, I got it mixed up. Yeah. So, I don't know what's going on there, and Harley's kind of like, oh, tee Joker, but then also doing this job so that the Joker will supposedly leave her alone, which you know he won't, but that's what she's doing, so it doesn't quite add up. And then they keep flashing back between 2 Batman books with the Harley bits, so immediately this book's impossible to follow. And then, so there's this bit where the Joker poison rains the area and only Harley's immune, and then Suicide Squad's like, man, we got whipped by Joker, and blah blah blah, and they just kind of wander off slowly from this event, and being all like, man, that happened, the Joker, and blah blah blah, into their own bullshit, and don't really give 2 flying shits that Harley was taken, that they just got their asses handed to them by a psychotic who has next to no funds or anything and knows all about them. Although they were unconscious at the time, so I guess they wouldn't know that he knew all about them, even though it's kind of implied that they did. Point being, the writing a little wobbly on that one. But it's kind of weird to see the Harley bit. I was expecting a lot more out of this. It's kind of interesting to see the interplay with the rest and kind of see, in some ways, why the Joker's such a threat. And then you have Skinny Bitch Waller, who looks like a lingerie model. She's supposed to be the Wall. I know I've already been over this, but god damn it. Just piss and vinegar, people. Just, yeah. The cover's pretty cool, though. I don't know. I like that, but yeah. It was handled better in Batman anyways. Yeah, interesting. I'm enjoying it because I'm a big fan of the Harley Joker interplay. And this one, it kind of is interesting to see a new take, but it's not quite there. I don't know. I just really wish the whole issue was just devoted to that, and they just didn't bother with the Suicide Squad, because they don't care. Why should I? Okay, next up's Batgirl, and I'm just gonna... Nah. I know I've been spoiling books anyways, but fuck it. I don't care. This Batgirl issue was really damn good, and it was written in a way that's really in light of the book and went forward in ways that I did not see coming. It was really pretty disturbing because they're really playing on this crux point of playing on the fears that Barbara has from that night, and in a lot of ways they're showing that she's not afraid anymore. She's enraged, but she's kind of a little afraid that she can't hold back that rage, and she almost frankly pops off some of what they've been building with the subplot with her roommate. It's really interesting how they get rid of that, and it's not shallow. It's in some ways more wrenching for the fact that it's handled the way it is, where she just bolts and tells this woman to go to the police and she'll never see her again. The real creepy part is Barbara gets this call telling, about like a kind of slowly like, okay, there's men coming to your door. Make a sandwich, or else I will kill your mother. So she's doing that thing, and there's that like misogynistic play going on as she's kind of waiting for the moment. And it's like, get into your work clothes. Okay, so this has to be the Joker, and the Joker knows I'm Batgirl. Okay. These men come in, and she beats the crap out of them, steals their gun, is this close to blowing the guy's brains out, except in her mind when this scenario happens, because she's played it through in her mind again and again, because clearly, I mean, how can you not fixate on that sort of event in your life? He doesn't laugh at this point like she pictures the psychotic Joker fiends would. No. He's crying, and that doesn't line up to the heartless villain that she's expecting. I mean, how human, how right is that expectation and then that reality right there? I mean, reality, but just pitch perfect. And then she runs to meet the Joker. And the Joker's like, how'd you know where I was? Not that I care, but, it wasn't the Joker on the phone. And the Who, if you've been following this series, is probably clear, as you've probably read this book, but just pretty unsettling when you see that, and you see that despite the fact that there's all this loaded stuff with the Joker and Batgirl at this point, more so than pretty much any of the other Bat tie-ins, sans, I mean, obviously the Batman book, but sans anything else, this is the most like on target, crucial to the book one, and it's already leading into something else in some ways, and it's right on the mark. I know I was against it at first, but I knew it was gonna come around too, because it's Gail Simone, and god damn it, written perfectly. The only real drawback in this issue is the way the Joker was drawn. Not anyone else, just the way the Joker was drawn. They kind of made it so like if someone had a face, then was plastering this face over it instead of the way it looks in every other book, and it just doesn't, it doesn't jive. I'm not against different versions of stuff, but when it's all at the same moment and the tie-in, it's kind of supposed to be one thing, and for that kind of an oversight, it kind of, but really, like, if you're on the fence about any of the tie-ins, this is the one to get, and you can probably skim over the last issue and just get this one. It's damn good. Damn creepy. Batman 14. You picked it up or you're crazy. Amazing book. Atomic Robo a little bit better. Saga a little bit better. Atomic Robo just a little bit better. But amazing book. And I will say this. This right here is the single best issue of Batman I've ever read. Because it answers something that's always bugged me about the Batman mythos. And it's right in the first few pages, so I'm going to start there. You have Harley, who dumped Batman into this trap, into this bit at the Acme plant where it all began, as it were. And there's just this narrative about Batman going through that moment in his mind again and again, and knowing what happened, but still being completely baffled on how. Because he knows the chemical mixture by heart. He studied it so much. It's ingrained in his head, which for Batman, not a huge feat, but it's there. I mean, if any of us had studied it this much, we'd know. 11% sodium hydroxide, 34% sulfuric acid, 5% chromium solution, zinc sulfide doped with copper, which gives it its green glow. Sorry, stuttered there. I'm just I mean, just that scientific. I mean, I know it's just whatever, but that scientific little bit for the color, and it's all there, and it's just completely deadly, and it's just like, yeah, okay. And he goes on about it and how, like, it is, but it's like something no one should be able to survive. And he has all this equipment, and he's Batman, and he's prepared, whatever. And his shit's just wrecked coming out of it. And you realize, wait, the Joker went through this completely unprepared. No one knew. And he came out the other end. The Joker. The question that this answered for me is something that's always bugged me. Because the Joker is not only Batman's greatest villain, but he's one of the greatest villains ever. And I mean, he can give Superman a run for his money, he gives anyone a problem. He's clearly deranged and the whole Agent of Chaos thing, and I get it. But I mean, really, how many other villains kind of have that shtick? Like the Trickster from Flash. I mean, really, how far apart is the Joker from that guy, except being a lot more homicidal than, you know, goofy villain of the week. And yeah, the writing and what you need at the time. But to justify it like this, like, he hadn't been through hell. He'd been through death, essentially, and came out the other side and laughed at it and wanted to share it on some level. I mean, that's not really written in here, but it's just like, okay, like, I've always gotten that the Joker's a threat, and yeah, he's Batman's arch nemesis, yeah, whatever, but this, it's never been sold for me. In the first few pages of this issue, it was sold for me, and that's huge. That just was like, alright, awesome, okay, I'm really glad I'm here reading this now. And then you get to the bit with him coming home and looking for Alfred, and he listens to the tape, and you have that extra creepy little bit where it's like, if you think blindfolds intimidate me, you're not blindfolded, dude, sir. blinded your eyes with pneumonia. Like, and this is a huge lesson that I think the comic book industry needs to take away at this moment. This is all off panel, because it's kind of creepy that the Joker recorded and taped it and it's there, and you get that little extra psychological damaging bit from that, okay. But for all the death in comics, death is such a right-awayable thing, you know, you bring people back, whatever. But to mar a character, to hurt them like that sticks with you in the moment. Yeah, maybe they'll get over it, maybe they'll have that 1 in 100 chance because the hero has to fight for, and that leads to some throw issue or some bullshit, who cares? But that moment with that there in that panel can't be taken away, and it isn't just erased with, oh, they got better later, yeah, because they're a comic character, whatever. No, so they got over a thing. But that searing idea of pain right there at that moment, that's so much more powerful. And it's interesting because this actually does tie back again to the whole Carnage thing, where you have this bit with the Joker and you can see him torturing him. Then you have Carnage and people being like, I'm gonna take you to hell, and he's like, I didn't think that was a place you could take me. I thought that was a place you created. And that's interesting because you see them writing Carnage, and I mean so many ways, like, Carnage is a really base, simple sci-fi way of having a Joker-like character in the Marvel Universe, which on that power level almost works, but in the Batman level, seeing someone create that hell, having the capacity, the frankly lack of, not in a literary sense, but in a moral sense, a lack of character in order to do these things, so much more intriguing, so much more horrific, that it's so much more interesting. It really plays to why Batman is the biggest superhero, because it is, I mean, it's not realistic, but it's so much more relatable because it's not sci-fi galactic marring and that exciting. It's all superhero noir played in the best way, and it's all right there. And then there's kind of a callback to the last issue at that moment everybody talks about with, I know where you keep the curtains, as I saw when I was under your bed, where you keep your cigarettes. And then they kind of come back to that with how Joker takes out Gordon. And there's this weird discussion with him and Nightwing about why Batman's keeping the whole situation with Alfred under wraps, which is such a like Batman move, and one of the greatest ways of them having Batman doing that, but also giving him that character flaw that every character needs, and it's right there, which led to my biggest nitpick about this comic, which was this frame right here. They're talking about this situation, and Nightwing Dick looks like he's laughing. I don't know, that face is just like, what? I would have rather that was obscured by shadows than having that there. So, yeah. And you go on, and then Joker plays through, when they meet on the bridge, this, you know, kind of what you'd expect of the Joker-Batman fight scenario, whatever, and then plays off of it. And you see his ultimatum, and you really see this play that, if you listened to interviews and heard Snyder talk about this book, you would have gotten a bit more out of last issue, where it's kind of said more here in a way you can understand. The Joker viewing himself as the court jester, whereas Batman is the king, and the Joker's the one who only has this perspective to make the king laugh at himself and see his faults. And the Joker sees Batman's family as the fault. It makes him weak. And so he wants to extract it. it would be kind of interesting if they played on the whole surgeon, with Batman's father being a surgeon bit, but it's there. And then there's the backup, which, blah, fuck it, make this book $2.99 and everyone would pick it up. Just, what an incredible issue, right? I mean, what a great week for comics, you know, I cut out a couple and it's pretty much all gold. And I know I've promised some other videos, those will be on their way. I would have had time to do another one last night, but I got caught up doing something else, trying to do something for you guys, like I said earlier, and it just was scrapped. There's a couple other things I'm actually working on. It's a bit more research intensive, and one of them I don't want to do, so I'm trying to find the chutzpah to go through. But thank you if you made it this far and stuck through. I appreciate it. And yeah, what a week of comics. I hope you guys had amazing stacks as well. Of course, any questions, I'd love to answer it. Deadpool's a thing right now. Please ask me, because everyone else I seem to be talking to doesn't know dick about Deadpool, and the ignorance is kind of pissing me off. Like, I was listening to iFanboy earlier and they're like, oh yeah, the cheap jokes and then the fourth wall breaking. No, Daniel Way's Deadpool is not the Deadpool to look to. Everyone critically hates Daniel Way's Deadpool because it's miserable. So please ask me about what to do. The sum of it is go find those Deadpool classic trades for cheap. That's where most of the good stuff is. Say you could skip the first one, except as the first issue of the series, so just the 2 minis and the New Mutants 98, which is because they could have put an X-Force comic in its place and really let people go from 2 up. Yeah, there's lots of great stuff. And there's lots of great stuff in Cable and Deadpool, which is pretty well collected. So I would recommend that too, though it's not as awesome. The art's generally a little better, but they're all damn good comics. Yeah. Certainly, so there's that. Seem to be getting a lot more outreach from people, and I'm appreciating that, so yeah. And also, if you want a recommendation for anything, that's cool, but if you just flat out are like, whoa, comics, what's good? Go through them every week. But give me a little something about what you like otherwise, because I don't want to just throw out comics, because when I do, I miss, and I recommend Chew to a lot of people, and then they're like, I don't get it, I don't like it. And when I start hearing more about their tastes, I see why, and I don't care, read Chew anyways. Yeah, but peace out, hope you're all doing well, and I'll hit you soon with another comic review.